The Johnson household was completely quiet. It was a warm summer night, and the gentle breeze swayed the curtains in the living room. John Johnson was finishing up some work documents at the kitchen table, preparing for his business trip the next day. Laura sat on the couch, reading a book while the kids, Emily and Jacob, had already gone upstairs to get ready for bed. In the backyard, Rex, the family's 6-year-old Rottweiler, was at his usual post. He calmly paced the lawn, sniffing the night air as if ensuring everything was in order. Since Rex had been adopted, he had become the most protective presence in the house. His impeccable training had turned him into not just an excellent guard dog but also a loyal companion. "I'm heading to bed early tonight," John said, closing his folder and getting up. "Tomorrow's going to be a long day." Laura smiled, her eyes still on the book. "You worry too much. Everything will be fine." She glanced out the living room window, where Rex could be seen wandering the yard. "With Rex here, I don't even think about worrying." John chuckled. "Yeah, he takes care of everything." He knew Rex was more than just a dog. He was a silent sentinel, always on alert. The family's trust in the dog was absolute. Even when John was away, he knew Laura, Emily, and Jacob were safe. After saying goodnight to Laura, John went upstairs, stopping by each room to say goodnight to the kids. Emily, only 8, was already in bed, clutching her favorite stuffed animal, while Jacob, at 14, was playing video games in his room. "Good night, guys. I'll need you to take care of your mom while I'm gone tomorrow, okay?" "Good night, Dad," they answered in unison, smiling. With the family now in their rooms, and the house completely quiet, Rex remained vigilant. He slowly patrolled the yard, occasionally stopping to listen to the night's sounds. Although everything seemed calm, Rex knew his job never ended. He was there to ensure any threat to his family would be neutralized before it even began. John turned off the hallway lights and went to bed, believing it would be just another peaceful night, like so many others. However, there was something in the darkness that Rex could sense, something out of the ordinary. While everyone in the Johnson house slept peacefully, Rex began to grow restless. He stopped abruptly in the middle of the yard, ears perked, sniffing the air with intensity. The dog knew something was different. There was a strange smell in the air, something that didn't belong to the usual suburban night environment. His instincts flared, and he started pacing around the house, sniffing every corner. Inside, John, who had already gone to bed, noticed that Rex wasn't quiet as usual. He knew his dog's behavior well, and whenever Rex was restless, it meant something was wrong. John got out of bed, looked out the window, and saw Rex pacing nervously back and forth. "Everything okay out there, boy?" he muttered to himself, trying to calm his growing concern. Even so, he decided to check the security cameras around the house. Sitting at the kitchen table, he turned on the monitor and began reviewing the camera footage. At first, everything seemed fine. The images showed a quiet yard and a still street. There were no signs of movement or anything suspicious. Rex, however, continued to act on edge, especially near the backyard fence. That's when John saw it, a faint shadow moving across the camera in the back. Someone or something was approaching quietly, trying not to be detected. John's heart raced. "There's someone out there," he whispered, his voice tense. He zoomed in on the image, but the figure had already moved out of the camera's view. "Laura," he called softly, not wanting to alarm the kids. She came down the stairs, still drowsy. "What is it?" "Someone's out there," he said gravely. "Rex already knows. Go check the doors and windows while I see what else I can find." The peaceful atmosphere that had reigned moments earlier gave way to rising tension. Rex remained on high alert outside, the fur on his neck bristling as the danger, though still unseen, seemed to creep closer with each passing second. Rex growled, baring his teeth as his eyes locked on the back door. The sound of something metallic scraping echoed through the yard's stillness. Inside, John and Laura were tense. Laura gripped her phone tightly, ready to call the police at any moment. John took one last look at the cameras. Now, the intruder was visible, moving stealthily along the backyard fence. It was a man of average height, dressed in dark clothing, staying in the shadows. John felt a chill run down his spine. "There's someone trying to get in," he whispered to Laura. "Call the police now." With shaking hands, Laura quickly dialed 911 while John hurried upstairs to check on the kids. Emily was fast asleep, unaware of the tension filling the house, while Jacob, older and more aware, was awake, sensing the unease in the air. "Dad, what's going on?" Jacob asked, his voice filled with concern. "We've got a problem outside, but it's under control," John reassured him, keeping his voice calm. "Stay here with your sister and make sure she doesn't wake up." Downstairs, the intruder was now fiddling with the back door handle, clearly trying to force his way in. Rex, already positioned inside, began barking ferociously. His barks echoed through the house like a natural alarm, startling the intruder. Every movement the man made seemed to agitate Rex even more, ready to defend his family at all costs. The man hesitated. He hadn't expected to encounter a guard dog so alert. But despite Rex's intimidating presence, the intruder continued to work on the lock, trying to pry it open. When the sound of the lock clicking echoed through the living room, John felt his heart skip a beat. "He's trying to get in, Laura," John said, his voice firm. "Is the police on their way?" Laura, still on the phone with the 911 operator, nodded. "They're coming. They said to stay in a safe place." Time seemed to slow as the intruder finally unlocked the door. But before he could step inside, Rex lunged toward the opening, barking ferociously. The man recoiled, startled by the dog's speed and power. Rex planted himself firmly at the door, standing between the man and his family, growling with an unwavering ferocity. He advanced with measured steps, inching closer to the intruder, who now tried, in vain, to back away. For a moment, the man froze, as if contemplating his next move. But Rex wasn't going to give him that chance. With a determined leap, Rex blocked the door completely, forcing the intruder to stumble backward. "There's no way he's getting past Rex," John muttered to himself, watching the dog, feeling a small wave of relief despite the tension still lingering. Rex stood his ground, his dominant presence completely blocking the entrance to the house. The intruder, now fully aware of the dog's strength and determination, hesitated, but still seemed intent on continuing his plan. Time seemed to drag, and the tension in the house was palpable. Outside, the night remained dark, and only the sound of Rex's fierce barking and continuous growling broke the stillness. John stood in the living room, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He looked at Rex with gratitude, but knew he had to keep his family safe. Without wasting time, he rushed back upstairs, finding Jacob already awake with Emily still fast asleep in her bed. "Are you okay, Dad?" Jacob asked, his eyes wide with worry. "We're okay, son. I need you to stay here with your sister. The police are on their way," John replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm going back downstairs to make sure Rex holds the situation under control." Back downstairs, the intruder, feeling the pressure, tried once again to approach the back door. He took a step toward the entrance, as if assessing whether he could get past Rex without being attacked. But Rex, muscles tense, advanced another step, growling menacingly. The man stopped, clearly terrified at the thought of facing a trained Rottweiler. For a brief moment, the intruder pulled something from his pocket, a small knife. John, watching the scene through the security cameras, clenched his fists. Rex wasn't armed, but his protective instinct made him an unstoppable barrier. The man took another step forward as if bracing himself to strike, But before he could act, Rex lunged in his direction, barking loudly, causing the intruder to stumble back and drop the knife. Rex's barks echoed through the house, and Laura, still on the phone with the police, heard the dispatcher confirm that officers were only minutes away. She moved closer to John, who was watching the scene through the side window. "They're almost here, John. Rex is holding on." The intruder, now desperate, tried to flee. He stumbled as he moved away, falling to the ground. Rex was on him, barking fiercely, but not biting. Still, the dog's presence was enough to keep the man immobilized. Every time the intruder attempted to stand, Rex advanced, forcing him to retreat again. Before we continue with this exciting story, make sure you are already subscribed to the channel and leave a like on this video to always stay up to date with new content. Suddenly, the lights from a police car flooded the backyard. The sound of sirens filled the air, signaling the arrival of help. Mark, the neighbor and police officer, was the first to exit the car, running toward the house with his weapon drawn while another officer positioned himself by the front door. "Rex, good boy. Stay there, boy," John called, relieved to see the situation coming under control. Mark quickly approached, assessing the situation. "Let the dog go, John. We'll take it from here." John, hesitant for a moment, called Rex back. "Rex, come." The dog reluctantly returned to his owner's side, his eyes still fixed on the intruder. The officers handcuffed the man as Rex, now sitting by John's side, remained vigilant. "You've got a good dog there, John," Mark said, smiling. "He did a great job." "We couldn't be more grateful," John replied, patting Rex's head. "He saved us tonight." With the intruder restrained by the police, the tension that had consumed the Johnson household began to ease. The flashing sirens continued outside, lighting up the backyard where Rex had so bravely defended his family. John stood next to Rex, still alert, as he watched the officers cuff the man and lead him to the squad car. Laura, still a bit shaky, came down the stairs with Jacob and Emily. Though they were frightened, the children now felt the relief of knowing the danger had passed. Jacob stood close to his younger sister, trying to reassure her, while Rex, now calmer, walked over to Emily as if sensing she needed comfort. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" John asked Emily, who nodded while holding her stuffed animal. "Yes, Daddy. Rex protected us, didn't he?" she said in a trembling voice. "Yes, he did," John replied, bending down to pet Rex, who now seemed relaxed but still kept an eye on what was happening outside. Mark, the neighbor and police officer, entered the house after speaking with the other officers. He was impressed with how well Rex had handled the situation and, as a friend of the family, knew how much they valued the dog. "I've never seen anything like it. Rex practically did our job," Mark said with a smile. "He did what he was trained to do," John responded proudly as he looked at Rex, who remained by the family's side ever watchful. "If it weren't for him, things could have been much worse." Mark approached and patted John on the back. "You did a great job training him. Dogs like Rex are rare. He's a real hero." Laura, who had been quiet until then, knelt beside Rex, gently petting his head. "Thank you, boy. You saved us," she said, her voice filled with emotion. Rex looked up at her with his big dark eyes as if he understood every word, wagging his tail lightly. "You all were very brave," Mark said, turning to the family. "Staying calm and letting Rex do what he does best was the smartest thing you could have done." As the police finished handling the final details, the house began to regain its peaceful atmosphere. John knew that, although the intruder had been taken away, it would be hard to forget the adrenaline and fear he had felt. But now, with Rex's support, he knew his family was safe. Mark said his goodbyes, assuring the family that the police would patrol the area for the next few hours to ensure there were no further issues. "Get some rest, you deserve it," he said before leaving. The next morning, the sun shone through the living room window, dispelling the last remnants of the previous night. The Johnson family gathered around the kitchen table, still feeling the weight of the adrenaline that had filled the house just hours before. The smell of fresh coffee lingered in the air, but the conversation was quiet as everyone reflected on the events of the night. Emily sat next to Rex, who was lying at the foot of the table, his head resting on his paws. She gently stroked the dog's black and tan fur, as if silently thanking him. Jacob occasionally glanced at Rex, still in awe of the courage the dog had shown. He had always known Rex was special, but he never imagined the dog would be capable of defending the family in such a way. "He really did save us, didn't he?" Jacob commented, breaking the silence. His voice was calm but filled with admiration. John, sitting at the head of the table, took a sip of his coffee and nodded. "Yes, he saved us. Rex did exactly what he was trained to do, but he went beyond that. He protected us with all his heart." Laura looked at her husband, a soft smile on her face. "We always knew Rex was special, but what he did last night was beyond anything we could have imagined. He kept that man away from us and still managed to keep us calm." Rex, hearing his name repeated several times, lifted his head and looked at the family members, his tail wagging slightly. He didn't seem to be seeking recognition. In Rex's mind, he had simply done what was necessary to keep his family safe. "You're our hero, Rex," Emily said, now hugging the dog tightly. Rex licked her face gently in response, and then rested again by her side. John looked out the window toward the backyard. "You know, I always thought he was the best dog we could ever have, but now I have no doubt that he's more than that. He's part of the family, and that's not something you can train." Laura nodded, her eyes misty. "Yes, he's much more than a protector. He's a companion, someone who not only looks after our safety, but also gives us unconditional love." The atmosphere had lightened. The tension from the previous night had been replaced with deep gratitude. Rex, always faithful and watchful, was now more than the household's guardian. He was an essential part of the Johnson family. "We need to do something special for him," John suggested. "He deserves a day full of pampering. And maybe a nice big steak too?" Emily giggled. "I'm sure he'll love that." By late afternoon, peace had once again returned to the Johnson household. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, while the warm summer air lingered. Rex roamed the backyard, as he always did, inspecting every corner with attention. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes remained sharp. Even after the previous night's events, he didn't let his guard down. His protective instinct wouldn't allow it. Inside, the Johnson family watched Rex from the living room window. John, still reflecting on the events, gave a soft smile. "Look at him," he said, crossing his arms. "Always alert, always watching. He really doesn't stop." Laura, standing beside him, smiled with pride. "I feel safer knowing he's out there. After everything that happened, I'll never doubt again that Rex will always be there to protect us." Emily and Jacob also gazed out the window, admiring their faithful companion who, even after a long night, seemed tireless in his mission to protect the house and his family. "He's our guardian," Emily said with a soft smile. "He always will be." Jacob, who rarely showed his emotions, nodded in agreement. "He did more than just protect us last night. He made sure we stayed together and safe." John sighed, satisfied. "He's more than a guard dog. Rex is part of the family, and I can't imagine our life without him." Outside, Rex paused for a moment and looked toward the house, as if checking to make sure everyone was okay. His eyes met John's through the window, and for a brief second, there was a silent understanding between them. Rex knew his place was here, by his family's side, always ready for whatever challenge might come. As night fell and the house lights came on, Rex settled into his favorite spot in the yard, where he could keep watch over everything. He knew his family was safe, and with that he could finally rest. That night, the Johnson family went to bed with a renewed sense of security. The household's guardian, Rex, remained ever vigilant, ensuring that as long as he was there, nothing would threaten the peace of their home. Thanks for watching until the end. What did you think of today's story? Leave your opinion in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Until next time.